Hello folks, welcome back to the Food for the Faithful channel with me, Bill Reimer, your ever so reluctant prophet. You know, I support everyone who stands against postmodernism and all of the effects of critical race, gender, and climate catastrophizing theory being propagated by our elite, many of whom are unelected, especially the globalist elite. I support everyone who denounces their activities, but since I taught problem solving and total quality, I want to point something out to you that should be obvious, but to most who don't have my training isn't obvious. Any fool can tell you what's wrong. Any fool could tell you what they would rather have happen. But to analyze how it's gone wrong and why, the root cause of what happened and why, and to, out of that root cause analysis, offer documented corrective action that will effectively end the problem. That's quite another matter. That's a matter for people who want to think deeply and profoundly about the attack on social order happening in this prevailing woke system, for want of a better word. You know, one of the problems the Allies had at the end of World War II is that when they defeated Hitler, they didn't destroy Nazism. They had a whole nation of Germans who thought that Hitler was absolutely splendid. They were still ideologically possessed, and many of them, when they immigrated to the West, brought their ideological possession with them and started to vote for the biggest system of government they could possibly conceive of. I know because I went to school with them, and they remain friends into my adulthood, and I know, based on what they've told me, who they've been voting for. They're the ones responsible for putting the present system in place. And worse, Eastern Germany fell prey to the Soviet Union and became a satellite state of an ideology more murderous than Nazism. So, today's discussion is on the nature of what causes ideological possession. And these are questions that I've posed to Copilot to see what it would respond in kind to my queries. To Copilot, what causes ideological possession? Ideological possession occurs when individuals become deeply entrenched in a belief system to the point where they lose objectivity and demonize opposing viewpoints. Several factors contribute to this phenomenon. Psychological factors. Psychiatrist Carl Jung suggested that extreme identification with an ideology disrupts psychological balance, leading to ideological possession. Social influence. Echo chambers, particularly on social media, reinforcing existing beliefs and prevent exposure to alternative perspectives, further entrenching ideological commitment. It's interesting it mentions social media because you're far more likely to be ideologically possessed as a result of listening to the Fourth Estate, which is government funded and operates virtually as the sanctioned voice of the state's official narrative. We saw this during COVID. Cognitive biases. The way people believe, rather than what they believe, plays a crucial role. I'll say that again. The way people believe, not what they believe, plays a crucial role. Strong conviction, preoccupation with an ideology, and emotional stress when challenged can escalate ideological commitment. Historical precedents. Ideological possession has led to extreme political movements, such as the rise of the Nazi Party, where rigid ideological beliefs justified persecution and violence. My next question to Copilot. Why do you mention Nazism as opposed to communism and its modern variant of critical theory? You're absolutely right, it answers. Communism and critical theory also provide strong examples of ideological possession. Carl Jung analyzed how modern scientific rationalism contributed to the development of communism, fascism, and Nazism in the 20th century. His insights help explain how ideological possession manifests across different political movements. Communism, particularly in its more extreme forms, has historically led to rigid ideological adherence that justified authoritarian control. For example, under Stalinist rule, dissent was often seen as a threat to the ideological purity of the state, leading to widespread persecution. Now here's a thought. Under Keir Starmer, Great Britain has prisoners, ideological prisoners that have actually not committed any crime other than to defy the narrative of the state. People like Tommy Robinson, who just was released from prison. So, in fact, Great Britain, the mother of freedom of speech, the mother of parliaments, is headed straight to the way that Stalinist Russia was headed. Critical theory, originally developed by the Frankfurt School, critiques social structures and power dynamics. While it provides valuable insights, some argue that its more radical interpretations can lead to ideological possession, where individuals become so committed to the framework that they reject alternative viewpoints outright. Both communism and critical theory, like Nazism, demonstrates how ideological possession can shape political movements and influence societal structures. Then it asks, what are your thoughts on this? So my next question to Copilot. Great answers, but you haven't addressed what makes people vulnerable to such dangerous thinking and what can be done to prevent it in the future. You're asking the right questions, it answers. Understanding vulnerability is key to preventing ideological possession. Several factors make individuals susceptible to extreme ideological thinking. Psychological and emotional struggles. People experiencing uncertainty, anxiety, or identity crisis may seek ideological frameworks that provide a sense of purpose and certainty. And under critical race, gender, and climate theory, the theory itself guarantees that uncertainty. It's based on uncertainty. Social isolation. Those who feel disconnected from their communities or lack strong social bonds are more likely to adopt rigid ideologies that offer belonging. Cognitive biases. Confirmation bias and black and white thinking reinforce ideological possession, making individuals resistant to opposing viewpoints. I'm noticing this among the alt-right now. People that claim to be conservative are repeatedly proving their confirmation bias and while using black and white thinking. I have no more use for them than I do for the radical left. Exposure to echo chambers, online forums and social media. Again, it says online forums and social media. What about the fourth estate? Can create environments where individuals are only exposed to reinforcing narratives, deepening ideological entrenchment. Preventative strategies it offers encourage critical thinking, teaching individuals to question assumptions and analyze information objectively can reduce susceptibility to ideological possession. Promote open dialogue. Engaging in respectful discussions with diverse perspectives helps prevent ideological rigidity. Strengthen social connections. Building strong relationships and community ties can reduce the appeal of extreme ideologies. Early intervention. Identifying signs of ideological possession early and providing support can prevent individuals from becoming deeply entrenched. I warn you that if you don't do this with your children, you're going to be in the same situation that my wife is with hers. They will not speak to their mother because she informed them that the state isn't God. And she is the most loving, kind, and gentle woman that I know. an officer and a gentleperson, one of the first of 2 women in Norway to graduate from Naval Academy. She just finished her career, retiring a week ago today, and with many accolades from the great and the mighty, as one might imagine. So, by fostering intellectual humility and encouraging open-mindedness, we can help individuals resist ideological possession and engage in more balanced, constructive discourse. What do you think? It inquires. Meet a co-pilot. Expand on what Carl Jung had to say about embracing radical ideology, since you had mentioned Jung's ideas about such earlier. Carl Jung explored the dangers of radical ideology, particular in how it can lead to ideological possession, a state where individuals become so consumed by an ideology that they lose objectivity and critical thinking. He believed that the human psyche naturally seeks balance, but when people over-identify with an ideology, they disrupt this equilibrium, leading to fanaticism and intolerance. Jung also examined the relationship between archetypes and ideology, suggesting that ideological movements often tap into deep psychological structures. For example, totalitarian regimes frequently invoke heroic or messianic archetypes, creating a sense of destiny and righteousness that fuels ideological extremism. We can see this, of course, with the Muslim hordes that are turning this little neighborhood into a ghetto. Brand new homes turned into a ghetto. Thank you. Thank you to my government that deliberately they brought in the entire population of Winnipeg, over 300,000 people over these few short months previous, with no place to house them and no jobs to employ them. Who's going to pay for this? Obviously, it's you and me. Jung was skeptical of Marxism, believing that its materialist focus ignored the deeper psychological and spiritual dimensions of human existence. Additionally, Jung warned that radical ideologies often emerge in response to societal crisis, like the immigration crisis we're facing today and the collapse in the economy as we head deeply into recession, offering simplistic solutions to complex problems. This I see the right doing constantly, offering simplistic solutions to multivariate complex problems. He argued that individuals must engage in self-reflection and individuation, the process of integrating different aspects of the psyche to resist ideological possession. Ideological possession is the result of an incompletely balanced psychology, of your psyche being fractured and different elements of it not being incorporated into your entire personality. This will helping to integrate the other, the anima and the animus, will help inoculate people against ideological possession. His insights remain relevant today, especially in understanding how ideological movements shape political and social discourse. What do you think about Jung's perspective? Well, I think Jung was a genius. Meet a co-pilot. Finally, why do all these illiberal authoritarian ideologies reject Christianity? Here's a very key question, and it's fascinating to note that even AI admits the importance of it. So listen, authoritarian ideologies often reject Christianity because it promotes values that challenge centralized control, such as individual dignity, moral autonomy, and spiritual authority. They want none of those things. Many authoritarian regimes view religion, especially Christianity, as a potential source of opposition, rebellion, or an alternative loyalty that undermines state power. Bingo. Christianity is the number one throughout its 2 millennia of existence. It has done more to challenge the arbitrary power of the state than any other idiom, ideology, philosophy, religion, whatever you wish to call it. Christianity is an essential foundation to Western freedom. Reasons for rejection. Christianity's emphasis on individual freedom. Authoritarian regimes thrive on conformity and obedience. It's exactly what it was like in Norway. In fact, they police one another. It's called Janteloven. It's 10 rules of how to oppress others. Basically, 10 ways of saying, who do you think you are? Authoritarian regimes thrive on conformity and obedience, whereas Christianity encourages personal moral responsibility and free will. Historical opposition to tyranny. Throughout Christian history, Christian movements have resisted oppressive governments, making them a threat to authoritarian control. Alternative source of authority. Christianity teaches that ultimate authority belongs to God, not the state, which contradicts authoritarian ideologies that demand absolute loyalty. Suppression of religious institutions. Some regimes fear that religious organizations could become centers of political resistance, leading to restrictions or outright persecution. While some authoritarian governments attempt to co-opt religion for their own purposes, others actively suppress it to maintain control. Meet a co-pilot. Would this co-opting of religion include the Nazis' worship of Odin as the All-Father? That's what they called Odin, the All-Father. Yes, the Nazis attempted to co-opt Norse mythology, including Odin as the All-Father, to align with their ideological goals. Some Nazi figures sought to replace Christianity with a Germanic pagan revival, emphasizing racial purity and warrior ethos. While Hitler himself was not deeply invested in Norse mythology, I believe that's patently false, by the way, certain factions within the Nazi movement promoted neo-paganism as an alternative to Christianity, which they viewed as weak or foreign. Some modern neo-Nazi groups continue to invoke Odin and other Norse gods in their symbolism and gatherings. The swastika is the symbol of Odin. This manipulation of religion and mythical narratives was part of a broader effort to create a political religion that reinforced Nazi ideology. What do you think about this historical distortion? Meet a co-pilot. Finally, what is the most effective manner one can use to disabuse people of irrational belief systems, especially given Professor Leon Fessinger's findings about people doubling down on their delusions in the face of overwhelming evidence? Leon Fessinger's research on cognitive dissonance highlights why people have often doubled down on irrational beliefs when confronted with contradictory evidence. His famous study, When Prophecy Fails, observed a doomsday cult whose members became more committed to their beliefs after their prophecy failed. Instead of admitting they were wrong, they rationalized the failure by claiming their faith had saved the world. Effective strategies to disabuse irrational belief. Encourage self-discovery. Direct confrontation often backfires. Instead, asking open-ended questions can lead individuals to recognize inconsistencies in their beliefs on their own. Provide alternative narratives. People resist abandoning beliefs unless they have compelling replacement. Offering a more rational, emotionally satisfying perspective can ease the transition. Reduce social reinforcement. Echo chambers strengthen irrational beliefs. Encouraging exposure to diverse viewpoints can weaken ideological entrenchment. Use incremental exposure. Sudden, overwhelming evidence can trigger defensive reactions. Gradually introducing new information allows individuals to process and adjust without feeling attacked. Leverage trusted sources. Leveraging trusted sources are where people are more likely to consider their beliefs if the information comes from a source they respect, rather than perceived opponents. Highlight personal autonomy. Instead of telling someone they're wrong, emphasizing their ability to think independently can make them more receptive to change. Festering findings remind us that beliefs are deeply tied to identity. Making change is difficult. However, with patience and strategic engagement, irrational belief systems can be challenged effectively. My summation. Of course, Copilot is a large language model capable of collating vast amounts of data in seconds. It is what its name implies, artificial intelligence. Nevertheless, it is a very useful tool when doing research if you understand the correct questions to ask it. A language model cannot comprehend the essential spiritual nature of man. However, it does tell us that rejecting God will invariably result in embracing a political system that is still religious to its core, albeit an idolatrous false religion which invariably leads to ruin. Only a return to Christ can solve these heresies that have captured so many of the leaders fomenting a new globalist religion, many of them being unelected. They are self-appointed arbiters of what is deemed to be truth, who seek to undermine the very values that made Western freedom possible. These are things to consider and think and pray about and discuss with your friends and family on this June the 7th, as we face yet more silliness from Parliament Hill and from Washington, where now Trump and Musk have devolved into a boxing match. It's actually amusing to watch if it wasn't so dangerous. God bless you. Think and pray.